Jessica.
And today we're going to be sharing our December wrap-up and see how many books we actually read off of our TBR.
This is our mood and our TBR.
How many books did we buy instead of reading the ones that we posted about? I think only one person here did that.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay.
You can start.
Okay. My first book was Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin. And this is a middle grade novel. And what really gets me is the illustrations in this book. That's really what piqued my interest.
They're super cute.
I just feel like there's nothing better for winter than a good fairy tale story. And this just follows two sisters, Snow and Rose, and their father went missing and they end up moving into the woods, but like there's creatures in the woods. They live in a little cabin. At one point they like have a pet bear, like a full-on bear. It just lives in their living room, which I found really odd, but it's just like super cozy little story. They make a little friend. I don't know why I keep saying little, but I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars.
And you also said you felt like it was reading like a graphic novel.
Yeah, there are so many pictures. It was just so adorable. I don't read middle grade often, but when I do, I always enjoy it.
Okay. The first book I picked up was actually a collection of 4 novellas. This is called Five and Dime Christmas. And these are 4 historic novellas, all set in the same location during Christmas time. And each of these stories has kind of like a Christian element in the end. So this takes place in the 1800s at the Five and Dime department store. Each story follows a different main character, but there are some overlappings in the characters throughout. Like some of the characters in the first story appear in the second story and so forth. But you follow either employees of the Five and Dime Christmas store, customers. Yeah, I guess those are really the two main things. But each one is just, I don't know. It was super cozy. It gave me kind of like When Calls the Heart vibes, if you're familiar with that show at all, or the books. It was a little on the cheesy side, I would say, but I didn't mind it because it was during Christmas time. So I feel like a lot of times Christmas novellas tend to be cheesy anyways. But I did enjoy it. There were some that I enjoyed more than others, but overall I really liked it and I gave this book 4 stars.
Okay, my next book I don't have a physical copy of, and that is Castle in the Clouds by Kirsten Gear. And this book follows Sophie, who is currently an intern at this super fancy hotel in the Swiss mountains. And it's just like they're planning for this big New Year's party, but there's all these mysteries that start unfolding. And she's like, that person can't be who they say they are. And I don't know what I expected. I expected more of a romance. We had like a mystery thriller aspect. It was very whimsical and the descriptions were really good of just the mountains. She kind of like babysat some of the kids there, so they'd go and like have descriptions of the snow days, the sleigh rides. And I mean, I never heard of this author before. I never heard of this book. I don't know how I found it, but overall I really enjoyed it. And if you like Christmas things, but you know, just more subtle, I would recommend this because it does take place all the way up until New Year's, so it is more wintry than just straight Christmas.
Next book I'm going to talk about, I actually already returned to the library, but that is The Christmas Clash by Suzanne Park. This book follows 2 teenagers, Chloe and Peter, and both of their families own rivaling restaurants in the mall's food court. So we have Peter's family who owns the Chinese restaurant and Chloe's family who owns the Korean restaurant. Now, Chloe and Peter don't really tend to work at their family's restaurants often because they have other jobs within the mall. Chloe is a photographer at Santa's photo booth, and then Peter works at like a virtual reality, like a VR booth. So they're like, their families are rivals, and then they're kind of rivals because they're always looking to see who has like more business and customers. But the main plot of the story is they learn through kind of like talking behind their parents' backs and things like that, that the mall is about to close. And so if the mall were to close, then their families' restaurants would obviously be out of business. So they, even though they kind of have to keep their friendship a secret because their families' restaurants are rivals, they have to end up working together to try to like save the mall and in lieu save their families' businesses. I thought this book was really cute. It was funny to me, like just the lingo of teenagers, because I have teenagers, so it was like kind of listening to their dialogue. I thought, like, I don't know, they weren't really like rivals necessarily, but their families were, so there was like this tension. Obviously, like there's some romance that ends up blossoming, but I just thought it was like a really cute and sweet story of how they both really wanted to save their families' businesses because they knew it was like their parents, you know, dream to come to America and live the American dream and open up restaurants and everything like that. So there was like a lot of elements to it, like, you know, just family and like the links you would go to save your family. And it was cute. So I gave it 3 stars.
Okay, my next book is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I decided to do a reread of this series this winter as I've just been collecting the illustrated editions, and I mean, everyone knows what this story is about, and it was just perfect to read during December. I read it like probably 2 weeks before Christmas, but I just was always like sitting right by the fire when I read it, and it was just absolutely perfect. Just as good as the first time I read it, just as good as the movie. 5 stars. You can't go wrong.
Okay, this next book I'm going to talk about is called Sleigh Rides and Silver Bells at the Christmas Fair by Heidi Swain. Now, by the time I had finished those other 2 Christmas books, I was feeling a little burnt out on Christmas reads, but this one totally saved the day because it was definitely my favorite Christmas read of the year. So this book follows Anna, who kind of just works odd jobs, taking care of people, and she ends up coming across a job at this place called Winthrop Hall, caring for like the mistress of the house after she had just had surgery. So she's kind of like coming to help her convalesce. Is that a word? After her surgery.
You're my teacher.
I think it is. Anyways, but she's like, well, it's getting to be Christmas time and I don't like Christmas. So I will only come and work at Winthrop Hall if you kind of like promise me that I don't have to engage in any Christmas activities. And so the owner of this home and this estate, his name is Agnes, and he's like, yeah, you don't have to do anything like that, you know, no worries. And so she comes and she is dealing with a lot of like emotional trauma from her past surrounding Christmas, and you learn more about that as the story progresses. But she kind of is there to help the family pass on the home to the son and kind of get him in line to take over caring for Winthrop Hall, maybe get it more like financially stable and those types of things. And then when he comes back home, he is kind of not really wanting to take over Winthrop Hall. He's kind of like, I don't know, like, I don't know what the word is. He's bitter about having to take over Winthrop Hall because he has other things that he's wanting to do in his life that he thinks are more meaningful. So they kind of make this agreement between the 2 of them. And he's like, hey, I'll help you fall in love with Christmas if you'll help me fall back in love with my childhood home, which is Winthrop Hall. And it's just so vibey because there is nothing I love more than Downton Abbey. And this book reminded me of Downton Abbey because there's like found family aspects with the employees that work at Winthrop Hall. The owners of Winthrop Hall really just treat them like part of their family. They include them in like their family celebrations and things like that. And I loved it. Like, it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't like hard for me to get through because I just really resonated with each of these characters, even the side characters. And so I am totally going to be picking up more books by Heidi Swain. This is actually like the 5th or 6th in this series, but you can read them out of order because they're each about a different character. But totally love this book, and I gave it 5 stars.
Okay, my next book is a novella, and that is The Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. So I can't really give a synopsis for this novella because it takes place after the events of Sorcery of Thorns. So I don't really know what to say that wouldn't spoil it. But Sorcery of Thorns follows this girl named Elizabeth, and she works in this great library, and it's very much resembles the Hogwarts library in my opinion. If you love the Hogwarts library, read this book. Then there's this guy named Nathaniel. They meet, lots of mysteries unfold. She's accused of a lot of things she didn't do, and I would highly recommend it. It's very atmospheric, especially for this time of year, I'd say. I really enjoy Margaret Rogerson's writing. I did have kind of a problem with the novella because it was just, the pacing was so weird. Like, I felt like it'd be slow, and then it's like, okay, everything's happening, and then the end was super fast. And I didn't really like the ending, and it almost makes me wonder, like, is there a sequel? Is there a sequel novella? Like, I don't really understand. So I gave the novella 3 stars.
Okay. So after that Christmas read, I was like, I'm done with Christmas books. So I decided to pick up Shady Hollow by Juno Black, which is actually 2 different authors. I didn't know until I read the back of the book. But this book just reminds me of Zootopia for adults with a murder mystery. That's all I know how to say. So basically it follows the main character, who is a fox. Her name is Vera Vixen, and she is a news reporter, and there is a murder in their little town of Shady Hollow, and that never happens. Usually it's just a pretty peaceful little town, maybe some robberies here and there, but nothing like as sinister as a murder. And so it kind of like throws the town into disarray, and she feels like the police force isn't really capable of solving it, so she's gonna do it as a news reporter. And I don't know, the characters are super cute. There's a whole slew of little animal critters. They have a coffee shop, which I thought was just pretty funny to picture little woodland creatures drinking coffee. But it's just pretty cute and cozy, and there is a pretty like heavy mystery throughout. I figured it out pretty early along the way, but I still wanted to finish it, and it didn't, just because it was predictable didn't make me not want to read it. But overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, and I do want to continue on with the series.
Okay, my next book is Flora's Traveling Christmas Shop by Rebecca Raisin. And I talked about this book in my December TBR. Mom talked about this book in her November wrap-up. But in case you missed those videos, this book follows Flora, and she loves Christmas. Like, think of the most Hallmark girl times 10, okay? Like, and one day she's fired from her job at this like Christmas emporium, and she's wrongfully fired. And she's devastated, but she decides, with the help of her friend, that she is going to make a traveling Christmas shop out of a van, sell all her belongings, go to this place where like Santa was originated in. and she just goes there with a bunch of these van lifers, and they all park together, and there's always just shoppers. It's like a flea market of vans. And it was so cute, and I love the characters so much. They all had just such different personalities and really felt realistic to me. I really enjoyed the romance as well. I thought this book was super funny.
It had good banter, too.
It did, like...
Better than a Hallmark movie.
Of course the guy hates Christmas, right?
And he's running the Christmas market.
Yeah. Everyone saw that coming, but it was hilarious. I would love for this to be a movie just because I'd love to see who they would cast as all the characters. I gave this 4 stars. Christmas romances aren't usually 5 stars for me. It's not giving what my favorite fantasy books give for me, you know? But I did really enjoy it, and I think it is my favorite Christmas book I've read. Until I read Sleigh Rides and Silver Bells That's Christmas.
The longest title ever.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last book I read was to just try to get my count for the month up, honestly. And that is this manga that I've had for quite some time. This is only the second manga I've ever read. And really the reason that I picked this up at all was because I thought the little people were just so adorable and the illustrations are so cute. This was my favorite one. They build a tent out of leaves.
It's in black and white.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So I will say, I feel like I can't like rate mangas very well because I'm not really experienced at reading them.
And it's a series.
It was a little interesting to me. I'm not even gonna try to say the name of this because I'll just totally butcher it. It was interesting to me. I thought this would be like one continuous story, and there was probably like 6 at least little short stories in here. So that actually I did not really like that because there were definitely some stories in here that I wish would have been longer than others. I did think the illustrations were cute. Obviously, the characters are cute. One thing that I thought was a little weird, and sometimes it's maybe because when I think of manga, I guess I just think like middle grade children are going to be reading them, and I forget they're written for adults. But like these 2 little characters are like gambling and drinking quite heavily in the last couple of stories, and I was like, this just is not really like vibing for me. Like you don't look at this and think they're gonna drink and gamble. At least, I mean, I don't. I don't know. But yeah, overall, I would say it was pretty enjoyable. If I was going to rate it just off of enjoyment alone, I would probably say 3 stars.
Okay, my last book is The Luminaries. I needed a break from Christmas, so I was like, okay, this looks interesting. And I've been wanting to read this book for a really long time. I requested on NetGalley, never heard back, so I just like withdrew my request because it's like, well, fine. But the tagline is "Hunt or be hunted, the forest awaits." And immediately I was like, The Village. Everyone knows I love The Village.
Also, I didn't know it was published by Tor.
Yes.
That's really cool.
That also piqued my interest. I'm like, okay, you have to be pretty up there to be published by Tor. Yeah, in my opinion. And this book follows Winnie Wednesday. You can have a moment to laugh at the name. Okay, I did. So her father is a witch and a traitor, and so her family is just completely shunned by the ancient society of the Luminaries. And she wants nothing more than to be a hunter in the Luminaries, but because of just their exile, she's not allowed to. But she has studied these creatures all her life. She's on corpse duty. Yes, that's the only job she could get. But she found out by reading the rule book that on your 16th birthday, you get 1 chance to enter the hunter trials. So there's like 3 different trials, and if you make it, you're a hunter. And so obviously you can guess what happens. It's kind of predictable. And I didn't know this is going to be a series, which I'm very happy about. And overall, I really enjoyed it. It was like a friends to enemies to lovers kind of thing. She has a lot of like almost grief with the people in the town for just how they can switch back and forth on her family so quick just because of what her dad did, even though they knew nothing about it. So that was also interesting because she's like, am I supposed to like you because you like me and no one's liked me because of all these things my dad did? Or should I be mad at you? And overall, I feel like there are books I like more that give me the village vibes, but that's just me putting these books into a category they didn't ask to be categorized into. So overall, I give this book 4 stars.
You should show the
Oh yes,
naked
it is
cover.
very pretty. It says Wednesday loyalty as a bear. Everyone in this town, their last name is a different day of the week, which is just very interesting. But they all have like different mottos and stanzas, I guess you could say, for their
So is that
clan.
like their family crest, kind of?
Essentially. And so that was also interesting. I feel like there was just a lot of things going on that I would have liked to learn more about, and this is a really short book. So I'm hoping we get more like world building in the second book. Overall, 4 stars. It's YA. It was good.
Okay. That's everything. So how do you think you did?
I know for a fact, I read 4 books on my TBR.
Okay, and I read 3. 3 out of 5 were on my TBR, I think.
I can't remember what your
I know
digital
these
book was.
2 were. Did I have a digital? I don't know. I feel like 3 of them were, maybe not. At least 2. But I don't know.
You did so good. You don't even remember.
I thought it was 3, because... Anyways. That concludes our December... not TBR. Wrap up. I feel like I did pretty good personally.
You did great.
Someone can pat me on the back, I guess I can.
We hope you enjoyed our video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did, and we'll see you next time whenever we post.
Yeah.
Bye.